Step right up here on the Midway. Come one, come all, take a journey with us through the life and times of V.W. Bates. Colonel V.W. Bates, that is, a title given to him during his days as a carnival barker and auctioneer. We promise you will hang on to every word as the Colonel tells his story.
Buy your tickets and go now. And I remember one time way back yonder in the early 1900s that I had learned to throw my voice that a man called Foghorn Clancy. He was a rodeo man, and when he didn't have a mic, well, there was no microphones in them days, but the megaphone, the big horn you holler through. And so when he didn't have one of them available, he'd go out and promote a rodeo, and he'd get up and he'd show me how that he could throw his voice clear down the midway. And by cupping your two fists together and holding it on either side of your mouth, you can throw your voice and say your spiel. But the one word that we use, and it was a favorite of mine, and it was a dandy, is the word eureka, which means colossal. You have found it. It's good to look at. And I use that word, and we put the pizzazz to it, you know. I'll give you a little demonstration. Eureka! Eureka! High look, all three down in front of the big show, where all the freaks and curiosities are. The bearded lady, the man that eats fire, the fat people, Tony the alligator boy, the living head without a body. They're all in there, alive, up and down the aisle and never out and never over. Buy your tickets and go now. Great Patterson shows, one of the greatest shows that I ever was with, and it was a magnificent show. It wintered in Paola, Kansas, and it quartered there. And the man that owned it was the Great Patterson Shows was the name of it. And he was the railroad conductor on the MKMT, and he kept his animals and his concessions and his rides and everything right up to minute. Most beautiful rides, and when we laid it out all in the Midway, it was something good to look at. The merry-go-round was one of the best that money could buy. The Ferris wheel and all the rides were painted right up to snuff, and the concessions, there was about 10 of them, and they were legitimate, and I mean an honest proposition. And if carnivals was run that way today, they would make nothing but money. They give away merchandise wheels, and they had about 10 of them in a row, and I operated the Diamond Eyed Bulldogs, and they had Cupid dolls, and they had canary birds, and they had grocery wheels, they had ham and bacon wheels, they had Spanish shawls, Indian blankets, and on a 30-number wheel, there was 30 numbers on the counter, on the chart, 30 numbers on the wheel, and we sold numbers for a dime. That made 30 dimes, made $3, and every time we turned the wheel, the items that we give away, we made roughly $1.50 and $2 on each item. Like a basket of groceries would be a big box of cornflakes and coffee, and you could make up a basket of groceries for $1 then. You really had something big for the money. So anyway, I was a pretty good wheel worker, and my spiel was, we got 30 numbers on the wheel and 30 numbers on the counter. Pick out any number you like, lay a dime on any number, and win groceries, win Cupid dolls, Diamond Eyed Bulldogs. But I worked the grocery wheel later, and so at night we would, after it was all out and over, we'd take the money up and count it on the bed, and man, we made nothing but money them days. That was mostly in Oklahoma. That was a good state to exhibit in, because there was money galore there, just like the gold rush. So, if I remember right, the Wortham shows, we was in Dallas, Texas, and I thought I was going to put on, I guess, your weight scales, and the guy had the exclusive on it, and he wouldn't let nobody come on but him. So I took a job down on the sideshow, Eco and Ico, which later on in life, after I got married and had raised some kiddos, and my youngest daughter, we used to kid him a lot about Eco and Ico, the sheep-headed men. And I always told them about what oddballs they were to look at. And they were a show all of their own. They was in a pit, and I was down on the Midway, and so I understood that they didn't have no barker. So I went down and made a deal, and I told them I'd bark during the fair. I didn't have my concession available and on the show, so I said, I'll do the openings for you. So my spiel went something like this. Eco and Ico, the strangest men in all the world, imported here from the far-off country. They are alive in there, alive in there. Buy your tickets and go now and stay as long as you like. The funniest men in all the world. They have wool on their chest and wool on their head, and man, I mean they're good to look at and funny. Come on in, buy your tickets, go now.
Dad loved to do recitations. This was his favorite one, The Vagabond's Revenge.
No, Doc, I've got to tell you my story. I'll bet, Doc, you think I'm a ruffling who fight at the stroke of a bell. But you're right, Doc. My life's been a tough one, and now I'm headed for hell. I used to be decent as any young man in my little hometown. My friends in the village were many, until I began to go down. And it ain't long when a fella starts hitting the booze till he's gone the whole way. Then when he thinks about quitting, he's found it the devil to pay. My friends, we've been traveling together since both of us started to school. And I thought he'd stick through all weather, and I trusted him just like a fool. He lived in my house like a brother, and for months life went by like a song. And then I began to discover that something in life had gone wrong. So I watched till I thought I detected my wife wrapped up in his charms. Then I dropped into home unexpected and found her wrapped tight in his arms. My wife, God, I found her no better than women who live on the street. So different from when I first met her, she screamed and fell dead at my feet. Then something inside my brain parted, like strings on a harp stretched too tight. That was the time I got started. I changed in a minute that night. And from city to city I've wandered. And as month after month rolled around, what money I had I soon squandered. But nowhere was peace to be found. Sometimes for a while I'd be cheerful, and the thoughts of revenge would be still. And then my poor brain would be clearful of him I had sworn I would kill. Well, yesterday evening I met him, and he begged and he pleaded and cried for help. But I promised to get him, so I choked the damn curdle he died. I killed him, yes, damn him, I killed him. And to make the job certain, I drilled him with 4 or 5 shots from my gun. I killed him, yes, damn him, I killed him, and a cop came my way on the run. I started to run towards the river, and I felt a sharp pain in my breast. Fell in the street all a quiver. A bullet had entered my chest. There's no use to tell you the rest, Doc. There's not much more I can tell. What I did was best, Doc. Now they're waiting for me down in hell. It feels like the room's getting colder, and I'm tired, and I'm beginning to choke. There's someone holding my shoulder. So long, Doc. I'm going to cook.